continue what we started last time by saying that this is a panel on the commercialization of artificial intelligence. We have three experts, expert as an AI advocate, expert as an investor, expert on an implementer of commercial expressions of artificial intelligence. And this is what we're going to cover, not about ethics, not about existential risk. Just how can we make this practical and useful so you can report good numbers to the board. And so with that, let's just start off and we can begin just quick introductions for each of you. I'll ask just quick 30-second snapshot and then we'll just get into the questions.
Great. Thanks, Eric. I'm John Curtius. I'm a software investor. I've been investing in software since 2010. Started and led the software investing practice at Tiger Global in 2017. Have been investing in AI since 2018. Some of the companies I've backed, as an early investor in OpenAI. My new investment firm, Cedar, is also a backer of OpenAI. Have also backed Scale AI, Pinecone, which is a leading vector database in the AI world, and then also focused heavily on cybersecurity and the impact AI will have there.
Terrific. Thank you.
So I'm Lawrence Moroney. I lead AI advocacy at Google. And I really see it as my mission to inform and inspire the world at scale around the possibilities with AI. A lot of that then leads to education. So it's really try to raise the floor for people so to be educated in being able to build with AI and change the world through that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. My name is Rami Qasem, and I lead the commercial activities in Beyond Limits, which is a spin-off from NASA GPL. Less than 10 miles from Caltech, and our focus primarily is to deliver hybrid AI, primarily bring in the best in class what we have today from machine learning, combining it with the human reasoning in order to provide, I would say, more trustworthy outcome when it comes to large language model and the solution for our clients.
Thank you. Rami, I want to start with you because you're actually implementing this. I don't know if you want to talk about any announcements you have, any collaborations, but to kick off maybe the context of that, how are you addressing any limitations you have from large language models?
So first of all, we're honored to be the partner of Saudi Aramco in the AI corridor. It's not like an announcement more than it's a confirmation that one of our key objectives is to build the capabilities within the kingdom and support the Vision 2030. To address your question, Eric, one of the biggest challenges we have today, what our co-founder Mark James, when you want to send a rover to the Mars, you want to make sure you have the capability to send a geologist with it to do the proper discovery of Mars. And with the limited information, with the limited data, you need to put that human reasoning, that knowledge on the chip in order to make it smart enough and be able to collect and do that data. That's our key objective. And today, what we are focusing on is to primarily address what's known as the hallucination of all of the large language model or from the data people seeing. Because sometimes, to your point, this is a penguin. And that's what we need to make sure that provide the reasoning, provide the data, provide the proofs, in order to support the industrial market with the tools to say, I believe in it because of this. That is going to require lots of investment, lots of partnership with all of the big companies, including Microsoft and IBM and others, because I think it is going to take all of us together to ensure that we build the trust in this.
Thank you. Lawrence, I want to come back to you, but John, you have a reputation as one of the best AI investors. You invested early in OpenAI. Databricks is a big deal that we hear may be going public sometime soon, and that was yours. Congratulations. We've just gone off a panel talking about regulation, but kind of the same thing goes for investors. How can investors who are not necessarily experts in artificial intelligence kind of distinguish the hype from the heroes like Rami and Beyond Limits?
Yeah, you really have to take a nuanced approach, and so it's an excellent question. And part of the reason why is based on how the industry is evolving at this point. And so you have the picks and shovels in the industry, folks like OpenAI, things like what Google is doing with Palm 2, things what Meta is doing with Llama 2, and a lot of value will accrue to that underlying infrastructure layer. And then you have some interesting AI applications, but you also have a set of applications, and this is actually the majority of AI application startups, in my opinion, that are really just thin wrappers on top of GPT. And there's not really long-term terminal value there. You may see the company exploding from a usage perspective and a growth perspective, and it may look interesting in the near term, but ultimately what they're doing is just exposing underlying functionality of these foundation models in a more elegant way. But they don't really have any special sauce, and people are just being wowed by kind of the new thing. And we've actually already started to see, I won't name names, but different players in the marketing copy space, for example, that saw phenomenal growth raised from marquee investors at high valuations. Once ChatGPT came out, it represented about 95% of the functionality of some of these products. And so now you're seeing management changes, growth that was 5xing now declining year over year. And so you really have to focus on what the competitive landscape will not only look like today, but over time, and which companies truly have real moats. And often that's tied to having access to proprietary data where they can actually fine-tune these foundation models in a way that their competitors can't.
Thanks. Yeah, it seems like unicorn used to be the aspiration. We had a panel 2 panels ago talking about unicorn AMA, but now it seems like decacorn is the new standard for AI valuation.
It's silly. It's silly.
Yeah, it's really ridiculous. Now, Lawrence, it's been reported that Google is dedicating, since July 1st, has been dedicating 30% of their global compute on training their new large language model. It's hard for me to get my head around about how much, and they've cut other programs to compensate for the expense of this, not to say the electricity bill, which is more than I can handle. Is that going to be enough now or to be competing against the other large language models?
Well, great question, and I can't comment on exactly how much
I know
we're
you
actually
can't
going to be
comment
using,
on that.
but nice try.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that's really important to understand as we look forward is not the large language models. If we think about, like in 1953, Watson, who was, the Watson was named after him, and he was the CEO of IBM, and he said that the world would only need 5 computers, right? And 20, 25 years later, Bill Gates came on the scene and proved that the world needed billions of computers. And we saw that in that, in that quarter of a century, we drove to having much smaller compute, and much smaller compute being the thing, right? And going back to your point from earlier on and how we build these deca-unicorns. Decacorns?
Decacorns, yeah.
Decacorns. I hadn't heard that phrase before. It's a good one. Where I see the future of this being is less about creating these huge, humongous models and driving them. They're still going to have a place in the same way as IBM's supercomputers had a place. But to me, the future of intelligent AI, large language models. We have an internal joke name in Google that we call them jumbo shrimp, right? Where it's both big and small at the same time, where the intelligence of a huge model is distilled into a smaller, more portable model that's energy friendly, that's cheap to retrain. And from there, when we see companies then distilling their domain-specific information into that, be it a law firm, be it a movie studio, be it a software engineering house, those kind of things, into these models and being able to glean the generalized language from them at a much lower cost and be able to run that on a desktop. That to me is where the future is going to, is where it's going to land. We're not there yet. That's probably 18 months to 3 years out. In between now and then, the huge models are still going to have a big role to play in the same way as IBM supercomputers still have a role to play in the industry. But to me, that's how the industry is going to morph going forward.
No, Rami, we have a problem with many of these infrastructures as Lawrence describing them. We know that the data is dirty. It's sometimes unusable. For people in the audience, how do they overcome some of the difficulties in their infrastructure to actually make what you sell useful for them?
I think there are two aspects with it. One, do you trust the data you have? And today, I would say 85% of the data is not, basically, is something people trust. And that's one of the biggest challenge today for any of these companies to succeed when they come and be able to provide a solution. So having the ability to make sure that you rationalize the data in a way it is usable, it is understandable. I think this is going to continue to be our challenge until we reach a common platform. And with the learning, with the ability to provide the right filtration, and I think that's something we have to do. The second aspect of it is, to your point, the whole computing, the whole hardware and infrastructure that comes with it. I think whether is it going to be 100 billion or is it going to be a trillion? I mean, it's going to keep growing, and having it in a simpler way, the whole symbolic AI. You don't need to have an AI engineer in every single function, every single department. We need to build it in a way that what they learn, they're able to capture. That human interface, that human knowledge, it's clearly a basic requirement for this to work and to be sustainable and trustworthy.
Thank you.
Can I just build on something there that I think you make an excellent point about data? And earlier you brought up the fact that like AI on the Mars Rover.
Yes.
And we actually worked on that. I was part of the team
Yes.
that put TensorFlow on the Mars Rover. But how do you gather data from Mars? Right, to be able to train a model like this. So sometimes you actually don't have the data.
Correct.
You have to be able to simulate it, because we couldn't send data scientists to Mars. If we could, I would have volunteered.
Yeah.
To be able to gather these kind of data. So often you have to work with simulated data. You have to do next best guess that you have from the real data to be able to build these models and to be able to test them. And actually, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, where they build the Mars Rover, they have a thing called the Mars Yard, where they've emulated the surface of Mars for them to be able to test what the rover would go through to be able to drive across different surfaces. And that could also be used for generating data to train the AI models.
Yeah, it's often been said that if we had collected all of the world's knowledge in 1600 into one of these models, would the large language model at that time been able to predict the centricity of the sun versus the Earth? We don't know. Either did we capture enough data, or do we have sufficient algorithms to have inferred that, or rather the current state of affairs, would we be able to infer those sort of things? Though this is a panel on applications of technology, but John, you evaluate these applications and see whether what Lawrence and what Rami are saying is investable and is going to give you good returns. We got a good pre-IPO company at the end of this panel that may be worth your consideration. But these take a lot of capital, and traditionally they have been funded by equity. So is there a place that you see when just the electricity bill is like the yearly consumption of Ecuador to train a large language model? Is there a place for debt to fund these things in addition to equity funding large language model training?
For the very hardware-intensive companies, certainly. And so what we're seeing with some of the AI labs like CoreWeave or Lambda Labs, where they're effectively kind of arbing the fact that there's not enough GPU supply out there, and so they're forming relationships with NVIDIA. NVIDIA's taking a large ownership stake, and then they're getting the first allocation of GPUs even above the the large cloud platforms. And so that those folks are actually going out and raising private credit from great alternative asset managers, and the debt is actually being secured by the GPUs themselves. And so that's an interesting play. I mean, I think the jury's still out in terms of what the business model of some of these companies will look like once there are sufficient GPUs to meet demand. But for now, they're growing incredibly fast. And the debt investors feel really comfortable, because even if things soften over time, they'll likely get their money back because they are secured by valuable GPUs.
Yeah. No, Rami, when you don't really require that level of funding to be training these large language models. It's not your business, right? But and do you see the incentives of the hyperscalers are, however, to collect more data, and so they will be pitching your customers collect more data. But I know you started out is to say the quality of the data is where it matters. How do you have that conversation with your customers, saying no, the quality, versus the hyperscalers saying no, just store more data on us, and that'll get you where you want to go?
Look, I think the awareness, education, one of the fundamentals. Today, to your point, there are lots of resistance from many of the clients, even to let the data be accessible. And that require companies like us and many others to make sure we are able to tailor our solution based on their need. And like what we are doing today, and we started to do like with the Saudi Aramco, how can you basically build what we're calling the industrial ChatGPT in a way that enable them to have a reasoning outcome for some of the data they have, but potentially take this into a broader and a bigger scale. The other aspect is them being able to validate and to even be the coder in a symbolic way. I think that's making people are engaged. I think the biggest challenge, if we try to provide some of these solutions only for the CIOs and the IT, the operation team wouldn't trust what you are delivering. And that's one of the basic fundamentals. You need all the stakeholders to feel that this system is to make their life simpler, but not to replace their jobs and not to give them basically unreliable data. That's the two things I think you're going to see more and more from all the companies, investors, Google and others, including us, to find a way to connect the dots there.
Yeah, yeah, and there's a Lawrence. Rami's talking about trustworthy systems. You know, as much as you and I might love machine learning and probabilistic systems, you know, these confabulate facts.
Yep.
Right? And they confabulate facts in a way that, you know, the earlier question I raised to the audience was, you know, how many people will get on an airplane designed by a large language model? You know, no one raised their hand intelligently, right? Yep. But, you know, so how do we design and implement these provable systems? How do we augment, you know, the Neuros Symbolic AI that Rami and others are developing?
Yeah, so that's a huge area for growth, right?
Yeah.
A huge area of opportunity for us to be able to look into. I'd ask the same question like many people would get on an airplane designed by a junior engineer. Probably not as many, right? You know, but how do we implement these kind of things? So when it comes to generative models, to be able to predict and to understand what a model is created by a model as opposed to created by a human, is an area of research. When it comes to image-based models, it's a little bit easier. Because if I get deeply technical for a moment, like a lot of image processing is done with a thing called a convolutional neural network, where features within images are learned so that we can identify stuff from those features. And all a generative image thing does is turn that upside down and start throwing random pixels until it starts seeing features that will actually match a prompt. And when you start doing that, and like you're effectively turning a convolutional neural network upside down, you can start being able to audit what that does to see if what that is doing is actually human-generated or artificially generated. Huge new area of growth, great place for you to invest in if there are companies like doing that kind of thing. Language models are a little bit harder. There are some ways that you can do it. The classic one is like, for example, if you talk about a language model is all about predicting next tokens that you were sharing earlier. I always like to teach it with, like, you know, there's a phrase that we teach children. If you're happy and you know it, what do you usually follow that with? It's clap your hands, right? 3 words. When you give a prompt, you can generally predict what's going to come out from that one. So a lot of ways that companies have been building things to audit if text is generated or if text is built by humans is just by taking a look at a body of text, taking a look at the beginning chunk of that, and throwing that at a large language model many, many times to see if what comes out at the end is very similar to what you're seeing. You mentioned one of the companies you invest in, Pinecone. Huge fan, you know. So what they're doing to be able to vectorize text is one of the things that will make that very, very simple for us going forward. Because when you can vectorize text, you can start understanding if the sentiment in one piece of text is very similar to the sentiment in another piece of text, and then you can start using that to identify if a piece of text has been generated, you know, by an LLM or if it's actually been written by a human. But we're really, really only at day 0 of this kind of thing. But I'm an optimist. I do believe there are solutions out there. I don't think anybody has productized these solutions yet, but it's coming.
Rami has.
Talk
to Rami, Lawrence.
Lawrence.
Yeah, Neuros Symbolic AI. John, so we need provable systems, right? We need to have AI that we can count on to run complex systems, which is what everybody here does, is they run the organizations or part of organizations with complex systems. How investable is this today?
It's still early days, I would say. I mean, that's definitely nirvana, and I think that's the long-term vision for most Global 2000 companies. But we're still, I would say, in inning number 1 or number 2. And I think, you know, at this point, you know, some of the SIs will actually help implement that, and will actually help, you know,
Systems integrators.
Exactly. You know, Accenture, Deloitte, et cetera. You know, a lot of them are talking with the foundation model providers, certainly OpenAI, likely Google and others, and saying, hey, like, how can we work with you to help, you know, achieve the goals of the board of directors at this Global 2000 company? And so I think we'll see the SIs get into AI in a really big way over time, and it'll likely be, you know, a fairly significant revenue driver for them over the next decade or 2.
And a lot of these implementations are manual, right, today. They are consulting
Correct.
work, you know,
Correct.
masquerading as product work. right?
I couldn't agree more. And,
Yeah.
and so oftentimes I'll even see startups where it's like they'll actually act as mini SIs, and I'm like,
Yeah.
look, that is not. I'm not investing in SIs. I'm investing in software companies and product companies.
Yeah.
And I try to convince them that either just go be an SI and that's great, but you're not going to be a venture-backed company, or create a product. You can't. And surprisingly, some of these people have been able to raise, despite the SI focus, but I don't think it's the long-term path to success as a venture-backed company.
Yeah. Now, Rami, you have a real solution. You're selling to these real enterprises. You have this Neuros Symbolic AI that you're going to sell to Lawrence, right? That addresses these issues, right? Why have we, other than a partnership with Aramco, why have we not seen a bigger embrace by the enterprise? Why is generative AI brought to the imagination for consumers, but not to the board?
I think today most of these companies, they would like to see it, to believe in it, before they basically implement it. And I would say for over the past couple of years, one of our first investors is BP, where we focus a lot on building the capability for them within the house before even we can commercialize or talk about it. On a similar manner, if you look at some of the evolution and some of the large language model, one of the roadblocks is the availability of the hardware. You need the hardware, you need the NVIDIA, you need that capability in order for you to do it at the scale. So there have been many other companies, I would say, they have been doing the POCs and testing various solutions. I think with the fast evolution over the past 6 months, you're going to see much more rapid outcome, and you're going to see more commercializing activities by many companies as fast as we have seen the last few months of moving from ChatGPT from 1.0, 2.0, and others. And I think you're going to see more to come.
Thank you. Now, we have just a few minutes left, so just going to go down the row here with a couple of questions. I want to start with just your best advice to board of directors to maximize their investments in enterprise AI.
Yeah, well, so the first thing I would recommend is, try to drill down into what problem you're looking to solve. And one of the main issues I find today in terms of board of director conversations is this even an AI problem? Like, do you even need AI to solve this issue? Yes, this is a clear issue, but why are we talking about generative AI? Oftentimes it's more of a legacy data science issue. And so I think sometimes board of directors are really excited about Gen AI, and they're trying to use it to solve a variety of problems that they have. And I think there needs to be training and education that, yes, Gen AI can be helpful for certain things, but other things are often solvable with legacy techniques in a more effective way.
No hammers looking for nails. All right.
Exactly.
Thanks, John. Lawrence?
I think very similar. I think the #1 advice I generally give is don't believe the hype. There is so much hype around this stuff. I think you made a comment in one of your earlier talks that the hype might be good in the long term, it's really, really bad in the short term, and I think that's great advice. Build a deep expertise into what these things really are, as much as what they are not. Apply that to your business domain, and then start working from there.
Yeah, what I was trying to get across is that the current hype is justified for the medium long term. So keep that sense of urgency, but shift your time frame a little bit.
Absolutely.
Rami?
As an AI company, I would say it's a tool. It's not the only solution, and they need to make sure they invest and enable the tool. And the human is the only sustainable factor here. So investing in the human capability and making sure we have the trained, qualified people on the space they're in, while we are leveraging the tools available, that's what the board going to get what they want and the return on their dollar.
Terrific. Now then, underhyped, overhyped. Give the over/under. John? What is underhyped and what's overhyped?
Within AI, or?
Oh well, you could do it. You could do coffee brands if you'd like. But yeah, on enterprise AI.
Yeah, I think actually the impact on society is incredibly underhyped. I think I am a betting man. That's what I do for a living, and I would expect us to hit AGI within the next 10 years. It's possible it happens as quickly as 5 years, and that's just going to have a radical impact on healthcare, education, quality of life, food security. It will likely eradicate poverty. it will likely bring about a post-scarcity world. Most people won't have to work unless they want to. And so, we're all, very lucky in that we live, in this time where we'll be able to see AGI being achieved. And so I think it's hard to just envision like the impact that exponentials have. And once, whether it's GPT-7 or GPT-8 or Palm 6 or what have you, once these models become self-improving, the innovation curve goes vertical. Right now we have humans developing models. Once the models are iterating on themselves, you're going to see the level of progress that typically takes 9 months occur in a few days. AGI, my opinion is that AGI will occur shortly thereafter. And so we got to kind of hold on to our seats because it's going to be a pretty wild ride.
Wow, I have to congratulate you to the audience. Usually when we talk to venture capitalists, they're talking their own book. And so I expected you to be saying underhyped is Databricks. Lawrence.
I think generative pre-trained transformers right now are overhyped. Everything else in the AI space is underhyped. I think we're missing the boat on many other things and many other areas of productivity that we can get with artificially intelligent solutions because the news cycle has been taken over by generative.
Wow, what a nice transition into Rami to say that
Well,
Neuros Symbolic AI is what's underhyped.
Look, I agree with John, first of all, in terms of, but I think I would say 3 years, the next 3 years is going to be crucial from a validation. Based on the speed we're going, the next 3 years is going to be critical for us to validate and assess where is this going. But the more investment we get, the faster we go, and the more transparent and connected we are between the big companies and the startup. I think the more reliable outcome you're going to see.
Terrific. Underhyped, neurosymbolic AI. All right, good. And good job buttering up a potential investor. Nice segue. Okay, with that, I want everybody to thank our panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Talking about commercialization of the AI. Thank you.